One of the most important aspects of a successful mindset is related to our ability to overcome challenges. Without challenge, of course, there can be no growth. So, if we want to increase our power to change our lives, we can start by examining our beliefs about the value of growing, the value of constant and never ending improvement, our beliefs about our ability to meet our challenges and gain the opportunities contained in them, our beliefs about commitment to ourselves and one another in terms of growing, and of course, our satisfaction with our results. You see, we each have access to genius and limitless creative potential, and our mind is simply the tool used to interface with that genius. Since our beliefs direct our thoughts and behavior and ultimately affect our outcomes and how we perceive them, we do well to cultivate greater awareness of these beliefs and, of course, begin to take personal responsibility for changing beliefs that no longer serve us or others.
Wow, a great opening video. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationship to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I am Steve Vaccaro. We're here every week, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Stephanie, I ask you, are you my access to genius?
Yeah.
So you're genius, and I'm trying to achieve genius. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I guess we pull out each other's genius. Is that what we do? We support each other in our own genius?
Yes. That's a great opening video. Because it's the beginning of the year. We're all challenged with different things. I think we really have to dig deep to figure out what our internal strength and challenges are. Correct?
Yeah, and also realize that we have the power to create something different for ourselves. Living in the past and living in ways that we've experienced before that doesn't feel good for us keeps us stuck and trapped. But if we get the right support and start making the proper changes and take those good steps, we can totally create something different for ourselves at any time. We don't have to wait to the new year. We can just start any moment to make changes for ourselves.
That's right. And the new year just started. So if you had to pick one word out there, one word, Stephanie, what word would you choose to represent what 2024 should be all about?
Well, I picked the word joy. I think joy is something that we need to make sure we're keeping in touch with, that we're keeping in our lives every day, sharing it with others and making sure that we're looking for it, because sometimes it can feel harder than others to find it.
That's a beautiful picture. Where was that taken?
So where I live in Texas, they do something like once a month. And this was actually in my local town. They did this whole winter wonderland thing. And it's a giant snow globe that you could climb in and get all the snow on you. It was so cool, actually. I was so excited to go in there.
I'm sure the kids loved it, huh?
Oh yeah. They loved it. And of course, in Texas, there's no real snow. So they had fake snow blowing for the kids to run around in too.
But when I look at this picture, I think you're the only one with both hands up in the air. I think you're loving it more than they are.
Yeah, they were definitely attached, and I was really so excited because I thought it was just such a cool shot. So yeah, they're just attached to me. Kids, young kids, they're always attached. So I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to hold on to that innocence and love as long as I possibly can.
That's beautiful. That's the beautiful thing. Well, I'm glad you asked. My word is hope. I think hope is what we all need, because when we have hope, you can achieve a lot of things. You could set those goals or those visions that you have that you want to accomplish or achieve, but you have to have hope with it. If you don't have hope, I don't think you could have that foundation to achieve any of those goals or the achievements that you want to reach or the heights you want to get to. So I think why we do this show and why we do different things on the network is to provide that hope, that foundation that people could build upon. So I really think hope is a key word and a key emotion and feeling for all of us to have.
If we don't have hope, we don't have anything, right?
That's right. And this picture was taken at Jones Beach. Actually, it was a walk for suicide prevention. And
oh, wow.
I saw this from the ground, and I couldn't resist to taking a picture. And for me, I live by hope. And I think it's so very important to have that in your blood and to really build upon that, like I just said. So I think joy and hope are two words that are great to start the new year with.
Agreed. And those are two words that if we can follow those and allow them, like search for those, remind ourselves that when we feel lost, we got to remind ourselves of the hope, the possibility that something else can be better for us. And then the joy is like seriously going out and looking for that every day. We can be the creators of the hope and joy for ourselves and others.
That's right. Now we have a bunch of new viewers and listeners out there. Why don't you tell them about your book?
Yeah, sure. So my book, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, is all about my story of overcoming the cycle of toxic relationships, ending my relationship, going through a divorce and coming out on the other side, not feeling 100% myself, and the steps that I had to take to really start creating my new life and creating my joy. And it also shares some warning signs and some steps that you can take to also heal after you end or have a divorce.
It's a great thing. And you have you have a podcast out there with your husband. Tell our viewers and listeners about that.
Sure. I do a weekly, well, actually, I guess it's bi-weekly podcast. It's called Toxic Love Transformation. And it's really, it's another one of those things that it's meant to inspire. I want people to walk away from reading my book, from listening to my podcast, really feeling like they can create something. They don't have to stay stuck. They don't have to be trapped. They don't have to repeat another unhealthy relationship in the new relationship that they start, and that they can really, make a different life for themselves. So I actually have a lot of really great guests that come on there as well. And, there's a lot, I love giving out content to be able to help support people in their healing journey.
That's great. Stephanie, you do such great work. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. Now, our guest tonight used to be a travel agent for over 20 years. And I guess since the pandemic, she pivoted to do something totally different, totally brand new. So let's bring Michelle Carbone onto the show. And I'm excited to hear about her story.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm excited to be here. And Stephanie and I are very aligned, I think, in our paths.
There you go. So,
how different is it to go from you were a travel agent? Like, what made you decide that's not even like a little bit, that's a completely different thing than what you were doing before.
Yeah, I mean, I and not just a travel agent, I owned a travel agency.
wow.
So it was like, how do you get out of owning something where you have employees and thousands of clients? The pandemic was awful for our industry, as many industries were, but I think travel and restaurants were probably the hardest hit. And what was funny was I did destination weddings a lot. And so I would hear all kinds of stuff. I was the counselor for them. I had to give them permission to be selfish, to have the wedding that they wanted, and all of that. So in college, I was majored in psychology. I didn't graduate, but I was always interested in that world and being a therapist. So when I sold the agency, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Let me search around. I found RTT first, which is Rapid Transformational Therapy by Marissa Peer. She's amazing if you haven't looked into her work. So I took her hypnotherapy program and also trained with her live. And then, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Like, I love hypnotherapy. I love helping people heal by getting into that root cause, the subconscious level of stuff, like what's hiding in there. You never know. It's quite interesting, actually, what's up. And then became a coach as well. Marissa has a coaching program. And then I also took an intuitive coaching program. So it was just, once I started, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
So Michelle, let me backtrack a minute.
Yeah.
When you made a decision to give up your whole business, you did it for so many years. Was that a hard decision for you? I know the pandemic hurt you financially and professionally, but was that hard giving that up?
It really hurt me more mentally. Literally we would be on hold for 8 hours, 12 hours. It was, and then you would get hung up on and you were like, I have to call back again and hold for another 8 hours. It was miserable. And I was literally crying at my desk every day, just absolutely. I couldn't do it anymore. And my manager was like, hey, what can I do? And I said, make an offer. And so that's how it started. And it was a little bit hard. I actually moved to Mexico for a couple months after I was kind of like done at the end of the year, is kind of what we had decided. And I knew I had to get away or I would get sucked back in. So I left the country and focused on my studies with hypnotherapy, which was fabulous.
And for real, you didn't do any of the things you're doing now back then at all? This is all new to you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the last 3 years, almost 4 years, learning, studying, reading, taking courses. I have over 700 hours of training in different things. So but it's fun. It's interesting to learn about our minds and how they work and our subconscious and also the spiritual aspect of things. So it's just beautiful.
When we work with clients, we use something called Psyche, and Psyche is also subconscious. So, I mean, I 100% back up the need for healing subconsciously, because that's really what drives us to make all the decisions that we make. So we can get all the information that we want, but if we don't change the underlying cause, we're going to keep going back into the rut that we created the first 30, 40, 50 plus years of our lives.
Exactly. It's like when people are in traumatic relationships and they're like, oh, I keep picking the shitty guy, sorry, excuse my language, that, is abusing me. And, I keep ending up with these guys. And I'm like, yeah, because you haven't done the work. You just jump into another relationship. You don't go, why was I in that relationship? Why did I not value myself enough to have boundaries and to say, no, I'm not going to let you treat me that way. I'm not going to let you talk to me that way. I deserve better.
Mm-hmm.
It changes everything. And I was in a traumatic relationship myself. So it was, part of my journey and switching from travel to hypnotherapy and coaching was about healing myself and leaving my marriage.
So did you end your marriage? Were you someone that also ended their marriage during the pandemic? Because that was like, so many people were just doing like looks at their lives and they were like, I don't want to do this anymore.
we had separated before, like the July before the pandemic for a month. And then we ended up getting back together. Codependency kicked in, as I like to say. And so we got back together, bought a different house, did all kinds of stuff. But then I was, kind of questioning what I did. And then I eventually realized it was still during the pandemic, kind of, because I left in May. Well, I actually left in May of 22. But it was still kind of, there was still stuff going on. So it was definitely difficult. But doing the healing work I did in training helped me leave.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's the addiction. I mean, that's what, when there's any kind of addiction of it, whether it's a substance or to a person, we have that dance where we keep trying to fix it and figure it out. And then we want to give one more try, one more reason to reach back out. And I mean, I did that too with my ex, is like, okay, let me just try it this way and see if I can do something different. But no, because it was the same person and the same things were happening.
Yeah. Well, and they have to be willing to change. And, most people really not. And that's okay. Do your thing. But, when you're not willing to look at yourself honestly and go, oh, I was being a jerk, I was being toxic or whatever. It's like, all right, well, if you're not willing to look at yourself, I know what I did wrong. But, if you're not willing to admit what you did wrong, where are we going? We can't continue on this way.
Right. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. That's our special guest today, Michelle Carbone. Now, you left your marriage, changed professions, and now you're doing what you do. Why do you love what you're doing right now?
There's so many wonderful parts. What's really great is after somebody's had a hypnosis session with me, they just go kind of wake up and they're like, wow, what just happened? I feel different. I feel lighter. I don't feel that burden of whatever the issue was, weighing me down. And I've treated a lot of different things, from cocaine and alcohol addiction to people pleasing. I've done a lot of people pleasing, actually, because I work with a lot of people that are in traumatic relationships. And I think, people pleasing is what keeps us stuck in those relationships a lot of time. I know that's part of what was wrong with, or what's going on with me. I don't like to say wrong, because you think, oh, I'm going to hurt them. I don't want to hurt the other person. And, I think as women, we get programmed to martyr ourselves for our families and put our happiness last. And, that's not right. We're allowed to be happy.
Right.
It's not
So-
selfish to take care of ourselves. And I think that we don't get that from society. I think that we're told very often that we got to put everybody else first, but that's
Yep.
the worst thing you can do is to do that.
Yeah. I mean, how can you take care of your children if your cup is empty?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Michelle, break it down a little bit if people don't understand specifically how you begin the work that you do with any client or individual.
So generally with the hypnosis, we'll talk about, what is the issue? I do an intake session with them. So basically I do 3 sessions with my clients after we decide to work together. The intake is about mainly what they want. What does life look like without their issues? So if we were doing people pleasing, it looks like they know they have a voice, they speak up for themselves, they say yes when they want to say yes, they say no when they want to say no. They have confidence, they feel good doing what they want to do, or any other things. We also usually will come up with a visualization because our minds learn by words and pictures. And so we want to really create and solidify what that looks like. I walk into a room and I feel confident and, that sort of thing. The session itself can last average 1.5 to 2 hours, but I have had them last up to 3. We go where the mind takes us. We go with what emerges, see what's emerging, deal with what comes up. In a session, we're going to do regression to take us back to why the issue exists. So, take you back to why you're people pleasing. And then we're also going to talk to that part. We're going to talk to the part that's people pleasing. And the parts are really, it's a collection of thoughts, but a lot of times very interesting. They appear as, a 6-year-old child, or I've even had past lives come up. I've had entities come up. They appear in different ways, and whether you believe in those things or whether they're just how our minds are interpreting things or presenting them, doesn't matter. I just deal with what emerges. Then we do some reframing. We might yell at the person that hurt them, which I always love doing. And whether that be, a parent or their spouse or whoever. And then we're going to do some inner child work a lot of the times, just depending on, again, what emerges. And the end of the session is when we're making the recording. So the recording is basically that repetition that our mind learns by, changing those neural pathways of thought. So my recordings are, you think this, you think that. And the recording itself has nothing negative because we only put what they want, not what they don't want in it. Because our mind gives us what we focus on. So we're putting all the good stuff in there. And that's all the things that we got in their intake session. And just 1.5 to 2 hours average. And then our last session is just a catch up. How are things going? I had one of those today. And so she kind of let me know, like, the change is coming, it's gradual. So I gave her some tips on some ways to really enhance what was going on already to, kind of help her along a little bit. Some issues, have layers, and, we have to we can go where people are ready to go. And, I'm not ever going to push someone so hard that they're going somewhere they're not ready for. Sometimes we get rid of a layer, and then a month or 2 later, we go, okay, let's do another session, get rid of another layer. Most of my clients will experience a big change in their first session. Some will need up to 3 or 4 sessions. It just varies a little bit.
Yeah, I get that too. And I think that's one of the things when you're people that have been in these traumatic relationships, most of the time come thinking, oh, the problem is the relationship, is the bad relationship, is me choosing these bad relationships. They start doing the work. And like I said, I always call that like peeling back the onion. So you take it to the next layer, and then you're like, oh, wait. Now I also realize I have a drinking problem, or now I realize that I also have been a people pleasing to my family or my friends, or so it's like all these different things come up. So we have, and I mean, human beings, we're not exactly, we're not one dimensional, right? So we've got all these different things that make us who we are, and we don't always realize how it's affecting us in our daily lives. So I love what you're saying, and I agree. I think that's such an important piece, is to look at that from the subconscious level and peel back the layers.
Oh yeah. And I think it's also important to know, like, it's not necessarily that person's fault. I mean, yes, they treated you badly, but you have to take responsibility for your part, for allowing that, betraying yourself and allowing yourself to be treated that way. And why did you do that? Most of the time, I would say 90% of my clients don't feel like they're good enough. They don't feel worthy. So all of my recordings have, you're worthy, you're enough, you deserve what you have, because, I think our society doesn't really foster us feeling like we're good enough.
Mhm.
I have 2 questions, Michelle. When you first did this, your first session or 2, were you amazed that you had this talent or skill that was not developed until later in life? I mean, that must have been like eye-opening for you.
I don't know. I just was amazed at the process. I
Right.
don't really take credit so much as just I can hold space. I allow my clients to go where they need to go. My training was amazing, and how I was trained was amazing, because it's not my job to figure it out. It's my job to hold their hand while they figure it out.
Wow. And what's the percentage of the clients you work virtually or in person? Because as a travel agent, I'm sure you had a lot of direct contact, all the time, but what's your percentages now?
I mean, it's probably about 50-50.
Really?
I do have an office here in Norman, and I share it actually with a friend of mine that's a therapist. So, so yeah, I love doing in person. Don't have to worry about Zoom messing up or the internet going out. I've had that happen a couple times, or one person thought she'd plugged her laptop in and it wasn't, it ran out of battery, all those little glitches. So I love doing in person, like absolutely love it. But Zoom is just as effective. I've worked with clients all over the world, from Bali to Spain and, all kinds of different places. So,
And what's the challenge that you have with the work that you do with the clients that you work with?
I would say, so I had one client recently who did not want to yell at her parents. And I'm like, I need you to yell at them. Like, and, a lot of us, and I'm this person too, you get to this point where you don't feel your feelings. You weren't allowed to feel your feelings as a child. Don't be angry. Don't be sad. You're supposed to be happy all the time. And she didn't want to yell at her parents. And I'm like, you have to yell at them. You need to get that anger out of you. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. I need you to yell at them. And she's like, but I love them. I'm like, I know you love them, of course. But you also need to tell them how they hurt you. You are an alcoholic because they hurt you and because they were alcoholics. And you need to tell them that, even though they're not alive anymore. You need to get that out. And so I had to push her a little bit to get that out. She was probably my most challenging. Her session did last about 3 hours, but I was like, I know you love them, and I respect that. But loving someone doesn't mean that you're not going to be mad at them.
So Stephanie, don't get any ideas. I don't want you to start yelling at me every show that we do, okay?
Well, and it's funny because so I don't do the yelling at, but then I suggest, doing kickboxing or something that's really physical. Sometimes, like it depends on each client. Everyone's different, but I've had some people find a break room where they can just go in and destroy things, because I think, one of the things about us as women and the people pleasing and all that is being the best little girl possible. So we don't want to break anything. We don't want to make a mess. We don't want to make noise. We don't want to, all of those things. So like, you got to get visceral. So, I love the idea of just like yelling at your parents, or the people that have the really hard time with that because they're so used to being suppressed and keeping it all in. Like, what's a way that we could get you to do that without it actually being like in your house and you feeling weird? Like, let's just go and punch things. Let's do karate. Let's go do other things to be more physical. Most of the time, I want clients to do yoga because of the trauma-informed yoga and the mind-body connection and all that. But sometimes I'm like, you know what, guys, normally this is what I want, but for you, I want, because it's so underlying, right? It's like you can just see that anger under there, but they're holding it in. It's like that boiling pot that's going to explode, but they're trying so hard to hold it in.
Yeah. Or when you ask someone, well, what do you do when you get angry? Oh, I never get angry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just aren't feeling your feelings. All right. Now I know where we need to go.
And your body's still being affected by it. So even though you're saying you don't feel your feelings, you're
Yep.
still getting all these negative repercussions anyway.
Yes. It's getting pushed down. You're going to have pain. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have all kinds of issues.
Mhm.
Now we're almost out of time, but Michelle, it's 2024. It just began. What's
Yeah.
some of your visions for 2024 for yourself and the work that you do?
Well, I have a podcast starting up. I think we're going to start next month, and I'm real excited about that. It's going to be geared towards Cassandra syndrome / ongoing traumatic relationship syndrome, and then we'll do some call-ins and things like that. And then I've got a retreat that I'm putting together for relationship trauma, which will take place in Mexico. Still solid, making the date solid, but that'll be in November. And then just, continuing to work with my clients, probably get some group things together. I love working with groups, with coaching, because, we're all mirrors for each other. And when we've experienced the same kind of trauma, a lot of times someone will bring something up and another person's like, oh my gosh, yes, I've experienced that too. And we can learn from each other. So I absolutely love, doing a group environment. And then of course, continuing to work with my clients with hypnotherapy because it's amazing. So,
Wow. And how can people contact you or get a hold of you?
so my website is Zen Mind Michelle. So ZenMind Michelle, MICHELLE. That's the main way you can book a discovery call for free. It's about a 20-minute. I answer questions, tell you about the processes, all of that kind of stuff. Decide, are you looking at coaching, hypnotherapy? A lot of people are scared of hypnotherapy, so I'll answer their questions. No, I'm not making you cluck like a chicken, or you have control the whole time, all of that fun stuff. Then email is zenmindmichelle@gmail. Instagram and Facebook are also zenmindmichelle. So they're all zenmindmichelle.
Wow, Stephanie, great guest tonight, huh?
Yeah, and I think one of the things kind of there's always the side effect of all of these things, right? And I think the side effect for everyone that's listening right now to Michelle share her story is she pivoted from a place that was not where she wanted to be to a new place. And I just want to keep reminding people that at any time we can decide to make that pivot. I mean, it is always the perfect moment for you to decide to create something different for yourself. And look at all the people that Michelle is helping because of that decision that she made.
It's just wonderful, wonderful. And she's such a great guest, and we will say goodbye to her. And but Stephanie, really, I mean, it's about pivoting, and we've had guests that week after week talking about that pivot, and it's so critical to make that pivot. Otherwise, you kind of left in the dust and struggling and challenged with the existing challenges that you've had without making a difference.
Yeah, and when I was a teacher for 18 years, I loved being a teacher. It was wonderful, but there kept being this voice inside of me that said, there's more for you out there. You can put your message out to a greater audience, but you can't be teaching anymore. You can't be in the regular classroom. And it was a scary thought because once I got my job, I was tenured. I wasn't going to go anywhere. And I was excited to continue teaching forever. And when I started having that feeling, it started getting louder and louder and louder. And I can tell you that moving out and moving cross country and stopping teaching and all of that was a really scary thing. But I have to say, I don't hear that voice calling me anymore. Like I know I just want to get in front of more people and help more people, but I know that I'm doing the right thing in sharing my story with others.
It's amazing. This is a great show. And we'll have another great show next week. Enjoy your week and the work that you do. And this is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. Jack, thank you very much for a stellar job tonight. And we'll see everybody next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.